Hey everybody, this is part 2 of E.M.P, the director's cut. Hope you guys enjoyed. I look forward to your comments below. Remember to hit that thumbs up button and that subscribe button if you like this type of content and like my channel. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great day.
In 1965, cars didn't use electronics to start. In 1965, they didn't have cell phones or internet. And in 1965, they sure didn't rely on the power grid for every little thing. But we do now. You should probably know that we weren't the only ones doing these tests. The Soviets had a very similar breakthrough that they quickly tried to hide as well. In fact, a lot of this information didn't come out until the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then it was by word of mouth. Their discovery came from Test 184. It was part of the K project they did in space over Kazakhstan. The bombs used for the test were a lot smaller than the Starfish prime test, coming in at just 300 kilotons, but since they were doing them over a populated landmass where the Earth's magnetic field is stronger, that was a pretty good idea. In 1962, the same year as U.S. testing, when the Russians launched Test 184, it created what looked like a geomagnetic storm which shot out an E3 pulse. That's a big deal by itself, but what happened next shocked Russian scientists. Test 184 created a massive electric current surge that, get this, fed back into a power plant and started an electrical fire, all the way in the city of Carinata. That's like transmitting a flood of energy so strong it bursts the pipes. And keep in mind, this bomb was 1,000 times smaller than the one they used in the Starfish prime test. Now, like I said, I'm going to give you some information on how you can shield your crucial devices. But before we talk about that, I feel it's important to tell you about the biggest threat we face. And honestly, this isn't just the U.S. that could be in trouble. It's the entire world. I'm not trying to sound like a doomsday preacher, but let me explain. NASA scientist Dr. Masumi Dikpati discovered that inside the sun there are solar conveyor belts that control the sun's magnetic field. That discovery alone isn't a big deal, but here's the important piece. Knowing how these conveyor belts work makes it so that we can predict when the sun is going to start shooting EMPs at us. See, when the solar belts turn, fast magnetic hurricanes fly through the sun, and later those magnetic hurricanes appear as sunspots. Sunspots are what we need to worry about. Think of them like electromagnetic storms which shoot out solar tsunamis. Here's how it works. Normally, our magnetosphere is strong enough to protect us. But when a solar storm hits, it's like standing behind a 3-foot wall in the 2004 or 2011 tsunami. Needless to say, that teeny wall won't stop much. But that's not the worst part. Imagine how destructive a hurricane would be if it shot out tsunamis non-stop. Think about getting pounded by wave after wave the size of a hotel. It was 11:18 a.m. on Thursday, September 1st, 1859. British astronomer Richard Christopher Carrington was hard at work drawing what he called sunspots. Almost before he noticed, massive spots flooded his telescope. He'd never seen anything like it. They were astonishing. A couple hours later, the spidery telegraph wire stretching across the civilized world went berserk. Every wire was totally fried. Coincidence? I think not. The next morning, Jamaicans, Cubans, and Hawaiians saw the Northern Lights for the first time. Granted, the Northern Lights aren't my area of expertise, but some things aren't natural. American liberals for one, but that's another issue. The only place you should be able to see the Northern Lights is the North Pole, and all that energy will make our communication devices useless. Case in point, on the otherwise normal Thursday of February 7, 2011, the entire southern part of China had its communications knocked out by a solar flare. NASA expects the solar flares to continue, and if they do, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll create the deadliest EMP the world has ever seen. Sounds dramatic, I know, but think about it. Not just once, but twice, the U.S. E.M.P Commission has spotted big holes in our infrastructure. Solar tsunamis have overpowered the Earth's magnetosphere before, and that was before we were throwing all these radio waves around punching what NASA calls potholes in it. And now every element of our life is dependent on electronics. But don't take my word for it. Walk around your house. Look at everything that uses power to run. Don't even worry about the luxuries in life like hot water or TV. Just walk through your kitchen and ask yourself what you'd have to do without if you didn't have power. Or better yet, ask yourself if you could do without if you didn't have power at all. Would you make it? Tough question, but I hope the answer is yes. See, it doesn't matter what I tell you, and it doesn't matter if you get all the cutting-edge survival strategies in the world if you're not serious about protecting yourself and your family. Quote, anyone who lived through that power outage remembers the annoyance of life without lights, air conditioning, TVs, computers, and all the other electronic equipment on which a modern society depends. Now, imagine a blackout that lasts for months or years. No American would necessarily die in the initial attack, but what comes next is potentially catastrophic. The pulse would wipe out most electronics and telecommunications, including the power grid. Millions could die for want of modern medical care or even of starvation, since farmers wouldn't be able to harvest crops and distributors wouldn't be able to get food to supermarkets. Commissioner Lowell Wood calls E.M.P attack a giant continental time machine that would move us back more than a century in technology to the late 1800s. End of quote. I hope this is starting to sink in. It's not just weird conspiracy theories or wackos that see this coming. It goes all the way from the Wall Street Journal to the U.S. government itself. But again, if so many people can see the danger, why aren't they doing something? Well, if you're interested in actually doing something to protect yourself and your family, I want to share with you the #1 way you can protect your family I promised I would release. It's called E.M.P hardening. Now here's the catch. It needs to actually be hardened, and not just look that way on paper. The Australian National Academy of Sciences put out not too long ago that hardening is, quote, not only deceptively difficult, but also very poorly understood by the defense electronics community, end of quote. Even the special U.S. military EMP-proof equipment may not survive an EMP attack or storm, especially if it's one of the super EMPs China and Russian scientists were talking about. But the easiest way to get prepared is to use a little-known device called a Faraday box. It's a stupid, simple invention by the brilliant physicist Faraday. It's just a metal box that soaks up the pulse as it comes across it. If you make sure the device inside the box is insulated right, you've got nothing to worry about for any gadget or electronic device you put inside. And on top of that, you can use plenty of different boxes that you can get for free or may have lying around the house. Stuff like ammo cans, filing cabinets, and cake boxes do just fine. Also, you don't have to make these airtight. Really, any metal would do just fine. The only things you must do to keep the Faraday box from being a waste of time are 1. Be sure the device doesn't touch any part of the metal container. Just wrap it in some cardboard, plastic bags, or bubble wrap, and you're good. And 2, the metal shield has got to be solid. 2 pieces overlapping are fine, but it can't have any big gaps or holes in it. You also don't have to ground the box, and it might even be a bad idea. Think about an airplane struck by lightning. It's thousands of feet in the air and gets hit with a powerful bolt of lightning, but the damage done isn't a big deal, especially when you compare it with a tree struck by lightning.